everyone, this is Stephanie, and welcome back to Let's Talk About It. Steph, I am here along with Dale, and today I'm at a special event with the North Democrats that are doing a Fight Back event over in Irving. So we will be going live stream, so you will hear all that is going on. And my co-partner here, Dale, will be on here taking charge. But we got a lot of hot topics that's going on. Of course, everybody wants to know what's going on with the Epstein. I can't tell you. Only thing I know, one way or another, we know somebody's lying. Either they got the information or they don't have the information. But at the end of the day, somebody got to come up with it and tell us either yeah or nay. And then we're going to move on to the special election, that the special session that Governor Greg Abbott has called for everyone to come in on Monday to give more money to the Kerrville people, but we just never know what he has wrapped up into those bills because we've heard that he's trying to gerrymander and do a redistricting of the congressional areas as well. So I'm going to turn this on over to Dale, and we're going to talk about what's going on. Oh yeah, it is very easy out here. I don't know if you'll be able to hear.
Be around. That looks pretty awesome. Oh, there we go. Thanks for having me on the stage because I couldn't seem to figure out how to do that myself. But yeah, it's been glad to see that you're over there. I wish I could make it there myself. Unfortunately, I am traveling this week, so I'm actually up in Boston right now. My sister gave birth to twins um, just a couple weeks ago, so I'm up in Boston seeing those the little ones. But I'm glad to see that you. I believe you said you're at the Irving event, so it looks like things are quite busy over there, and that's good. We definitely need a Democratic presence in Texas with everything that's going on. So I know that we wanted to talk about. There's a lot to talk about, just even with those two things alone: the Epstein thing and the Colville thing, because everything happened so quickly. My head's at a little bit of a daze. I am actually kind of forgetting which one came first. But first, let's talk about the floodings that happened uh, in Texas, and it's something that I definitely want to say that my heart goes out to all the youngsters who have passed. Um, and while we are devastated, I feel that we are equally enraged over how this incident that happened could have been mitigated. I'm not saying it could have been prevented. I'm not saying that all the deaths could have been stopped. And in hindsight, I'm not necessarily going to point the finger at defunding NOAA, at least not yet. Defunding things like NOAA and defunding our meteorologists, that obviously did not help, but there are bigger factors at play when it comes to the tragedy that happened and the lack of mitigation to the tragedy that happened with the flooding that happened in that area. And the first thing, I think we talked a little about this before, but the first thing I want to go into is the county commissioner's court of that area in Texas, because when Joe Biden was the president, there was I'm blanking on the act. I think it was something like Build America Again Act or something like that. But there was a lot of taxpayer money that was basically given to them. A lot of money was basically given specifically for trying to enhance their warning systems, because this particular area in Texas is known to have flooding issues. They've had floods in the past. They had a flood about a decade ago. They also had another flood about 8 years ago, and it's known to be a problem area because water comes into their area from up north, and their topology of their soil is a little bit more clay and a little bit more sand compared to other areas in Texas. So it's kind of a perfect storm, a perfect area for these types of devastating floods to occur and flash flooding to occur. So this is a problem area, and they were given money about 8 years ago saying, hey, here's money from the federal government that you can use to build your systems. I don't have the video on me right now, but I'll post it on social media later. You might have seen it, but there is a supercut of people from that area going to the county commissioner's court and talking to their county commissioners. There's a lot of people who are very, very cynical at the Biden administration and saying, oh, we can't take money from the federal government. We don't want these strings attached. Now, granted, when they say strings attached, I don't really know what that means. From what I understand, federal money was given to problem areas like this area in Kerr County in order to try to mitigate these issues. But because they were very cynical and they were very, anti-federal government, they first told themselves they were going to not take the money. They then, when they decided to say they were not going to take the money, they then said to themselves, "Oh wait, if we don't take the money, the will quote go to blue states," and they didn't want that to happen. It's kind of nonsensical, and it's completely based on hysteria. Because to be honest with y'all, when it comes to paying federal taxes, and when money comes from these national money buckets down in areas like Kerr County, Texas, that money mostly comes from blue states. By the way, it's not as if this federal taxes comes more so from red states. It mostly comes from blue states. But and they had it in their heads that well, want to allow the money to go back to blue states. So instead, they did take the money, but they never invested it into sirens. They never invested it into a messaging system. They had said, I believe it gave a lot of it to a retired police officer, like I think a good chunk of it, and then almost the rest of it went to the police force, and they basically got some souped up cars and things like that for the police. It's very hard to understand in hindsight. Ironically, one of my family members actually knows one of the people in the area. And this came to light because I was showing the supercut of individuals who came to the Kerr County Commissioner's Court. There's this one lady basically saying, like, you can't take this money from Biden, calling the Biden administration evil and things like that. And my family member who knows this lady, she's saying, like, no, you got to understand that, like, her husband died of COVID, and she's been hearing these conspiracy theories about COVID and things like that. And like, she's a woman who's grieving. She's a widow, and she's grieving for her husband who died of COVID. And because she hears all these conspiracy theories and things like that, she associates the Biden administration in her head with COVID conspiracies. I don't fully understand why. I mean, in the end of the day, COVID was a thing that happened during the Trump administration, right? But of course, partisan stuff comes into play. And so from what I understand, like at least this one particular individual within the super individuals who are coming to the Kerr County Commissioner's Court and saying, "Oh, well, the Biden administration is evil. We can't take their money." At least this one individual, from what I understand, she was basically someone who's grieving. She was angry. She blamed politicians or whatever for COVID for whatever media she's consuming. And so I guess she heard money was about to come into her county, which was supposed to help out with the sirens and the warning systems for the next floods. But because she was cynical and grieving, she was like saying all this crazy stuff in front of the commissioner's court. And we actually got kind of roped into this video montage, this supercut of people saying all these crazy things to the county commissioner's court and rejecting federal funding to come to fix their sirens. Now, I mean, I don't want to, from what I understand, this individual woman is getting a lot of flack right now over social media. And I do want to say, I do want to look at a situation like this and think to myself, well, this woman today, I bet she probably sees of herself in that supercut. And she's probably looking at herself and thinking to herself, like, man, like, I probably would not say the same thing today as I did back then. Right. And so this is like one of those things where sometimes, like, some people may rage out because they lost a family member or a loved one. And maybe, when you're grieving and things like that, people do become susceptible to listening to conspiracy theories, and it can confuse people. But from what I understand, this woman who was very angry back in the day and screaming very cynically against, taking federal funding to fix their sirens, from what I understand, it sounds like she doesn't believe in the same things today as she did back then. But, when it comes to social media and these video feeds, when you go in front of a county commissioner's court, folks, even to a city council meeting, by the way, you're on camera and it's always recorded. And a lot of these situations too, like, I know every time I've gone in front of city council, every time I've gone in front of a county commissioner's court, every time I've gone to like Louisville ISD or any of the ISDs, they expect you to say their name. I don't know about the ISDs, but the other ones also expect me to say my address before I even start talking. So be mindful of what you say when you're in front of a commissioner's court or a city council, folks, because if you say something out of rage one day or out of emotion one day, it could stick with you, because it did with this one lady who basically was like avidly screaming angrily against the Biden administration and to not take this federal funding to fix their sirens, only for years later for all these kids to die in this massive flood, and social media creating the supercut and her getting roped into all this. Apparently, words she said a long time ago, nearly 8 years ago, now is coming back to haunt her. And there's all sorts of people who are very angry at her over social media. So that was one interesting story that kind of came up. It's interesting to see. They say everyone always has 6 degrees of separation. This, I guess, happens to be one of those situations. But aside from that, I believe that there are other people who are very bad actors, or at the very least, are actors who are not behaving appropriately. And by that, I'm going to talk about our Governor Greg Abbott. Now, Governor Greg Abbott, he came to Kerr County and he started talking about the floods. And I'm not sure if y'all have heard his immediate response in the questioning, but a reporter asked Greg Abbott. He said, "Who is to blame for all this?" Or he didn't ask who should we make fingers to. He said, "Who is to blame for this?" I think that should be a pretty standard question whenever you have a travesty like this, right? But Governor Greg Abbott's response immediately was to say, quote, "Those are loser questions," end quote. He then went on to say, "We should not be pointing fingers." Now, first of all, it's very alarming when someone asks, "Hey, who's to blame for this?" Like, a tragedy happened, and if a reporter asks you who's to blame for this, for one, being defensive like Donald Trump, to be like, "How dare you ask that question?" That's basically what Greg Abbott is saying when he's saying, quote, "That's a loser question," end quote. It's being immediately defensive. And then to say, "Well, we should not be pointing fingers." If your immediate response to a question of "Hey, who's at fault for this?" If your immediate response is "Hey, we shouldn't be looking at who's responsible," that should raise all sorts of red alarms. It should raise all sorts of red flags. I don't care what situation it is. There's at least nicer ways to say that. But if you say that in such a way where you preface that by saying, "How dare you even ask that question?" Or in this case, specifically, Greg said, "Those are loser questions," it really kind of shows that you might personally in your head might realize that you might be at yourself maybe a little bit at fault, or at least somehow intentionally might be associating yourself with that way, some way or somehow. Obviously, Greg Abbott took that almost as a threat, and which is why he had a knee-jerk reaction in his response. And so it's alarming when uh, that he's like, "How dare you ask such a question?" Now, to be honest with you, I'm not going to point the finger at Greg Abbott specifically. I think one of the larger issues that we have is the lack of the funding towards the sirens and the awareness system in that local area, the lack of communications in that area. I would point the finger more so at the county commissioner's court, as I kind of previously discussed. As a reminder, I think I forgot to bring this up. This is an area where cell phone reception is not all that great. So even when NOAA blasts out their warning signs saying, "Hey, there's a massive flood happening right now, you need to evacuate," even when they said that to your phone and your phone goes brrr, and it brings up that big giant message on your phone, if you don't have cell phone reception, your phone's not going to pick that up. Right, guys, that does not go through satellites. That goes through cell phone towers. In a rural area like that, not everyone has cell phone reception. Not to mention, too, don't forget, even if you do have a cell phone tower, some cell phones may connect to that tower, other ones might not. For example, like my wife has an AT&T phone, and I have a T-Mobile phone. And some phones and some carriers work on some cell phone towers, but not others. Just because you're near a cell phone tower doesn't mean that your phone's going to necessarily connect to that tower. For one, that tower and your phone needs to be able to communicate with the same protocol. For two, the company in which your communications go through, whether it be T-Mobile or Verizon or AT&T, that service needs to be hosted on that cell phone tower. So when it comes to emergency broadcast systems, it obviously is something that it's a weakness in this particular area geographically. And by the way, this is just a common thing that happens in rural communities all the time, right? It's particularly harsh in this area because it's not just a rural community, but it's a rural community that is susceptible to flooding. Now, I'm bringing that up because I wanted to preface that before. But getting back to Greg Abbott's response, Greg Abbott, he said, "How dare you ask that question?" Quote, calling that quote a looser question, end quote. He then said, "We should not be pointing fingers." But the next thing that Greg Abbott said was even more alarming. He made a crazy analogy to football. So one more time, in a travesty where lots of little girls died due to a massive flooding, when being asked who's to blame for this, he gets defensive. He calls it a looser question. He says we shouldn't point fingers. And then he goes into football. And he says, well, just like a football team might lose a game one day, it's always up to the job of the coach to say, we're going to get back out there. We're going to do it again. We're going to do our best. It is a wildly tone deaf, detached statement, an analogy like that, after the death of so many little girls. Relate this to football somehow. What we needed in this situation was not a pep talk by a coach. What we needed were sirens. What we needed was funding to our warning systems to make sure this never happens again. That's what those girls needed, not a pep talk from a coach. It's absolutely tone deaf and disgusting to think that our governor went down that route. And it makes me, I try to hold hope, but it's one of those things that makes me feel like our leadership is not taking this seriously because it shows just how detached they are. I understand that Texas loves their football, but this was not the time to make a football analogy at all. So I don't know if I think I don't know if you're able to talk, Steph, but I'll keep going on about it because there is a lot to talk about this kind of stuff. It's because I do worry about going forward if, well, not if, when things get even worse. Because yeah, the funding to NOAA has been cut. Now, obviously, that did not help this situation, but I don't really know how much of an effect that would have on such situations like these yet. Because when we do see funding cut to meteorologists and things like that, sometimes there's a time delay upon when these effects actually are felt. Same thing when laws and bills get passed. For example, the school voucher program was passed recently, but we're not going to feel the effects of those yet. Probably not for not really for another year. Granted, our school systems are already underfunded, but I mean, the final nail in the coffin, we're probably not really going to feel that, and probably like right around the next election cycle. We'll see. But my point is that there's always a delay with these things, and it's going to hinder our ability to do weather prediction as we move along. So, when will the next flood in that area be? Well, we will definitely find out. And on top of that, I am. Oh, I'm sorry. I don't know if you want to talk, Steph. Oh, okay. Well, anyways, so I do see that the governor has done something which I will say is accurate. He's done the right thing. He has called for a special session. And oh, I'm sorry. Oh, okay. I couldn't tell if Stephanie was trying to talk. I know it's a little bit. Oh, oh, I think that's Nick Papas I see up there. If I can see that correctly, looks like that's Nick Papas. He's running for governor. It's good to see him on the trail. I know there is him, and I believe there is also another candidate who's also running to be the governor as well. I don't have my notes up in front of me right now. I would say his name. I know it's our rancher guy.
The great Dr. Martin Luther King stated that justice delayed is justice denied. So I will keep you to the court that there's recommend that. So thank you for being here. Thank you for
These candidate intros are really, really fast. It seems like they're probably given less than a minute to introduce themselves. Audio is not being picked up too well right now.
Yeah.
I'm able to visually identify some of these candidates. Unfortunately, the audio is not coming in too well. I'm not quite sure if Stephanie can hear me, but it does look like they're giving candidates probably less than a minute, probably because there's a lot of candidates at this event, which is to be expected. Yep, actually, we're not even getting any audio anymore. That's okay. But it's good to see the candidate forums. Also, it's really good to see candidate forums happening, or other candidate intros, I would say, this early in the election phase. Um, for those who are curious on how these things work, you can't sign up to run for office even if you wanted to, not yet. The filing period starts in, I believe, early, like right around early November. There's like a 30-day window in which you file to run for office. Now, you can claim that you're going to run for office, and that's fine. That's a normal standard procedure, and that is when people start fundraising. Looks like might have our audio back, or maybe not. That's okay. But yeah, it's good to see candidates getting ready to run for office this early. It's something that we really need. It also helps the candidates as well because it helps to know who, as a candidate, you may be facing in the primaries. Because one common thing that you'll find is that sometimes when it comes to the time to actually to file, some candidates switch over. Oh, it's Nick Papas. Yeah, look. Now, now I'm hoping that Stephanie has her volume all the way down, because if she doesn't, I don't want to be talking and having these guys hear me. um, and I think we're losing our audio again. But yeah, as I was saying, so it helps the candidates to start early because it lets them know who they may potentially primary. Because when it comes time to file, a lot of candidates will sometimes switch over to a different race. I'm guilty of doing that myself. But it was done in a good way. It was done in a way where basically I helped someone out, and her name was Hava Johnson, and I helped her out in such a way where she did not have to face a primary since I switched over to a different race. Didn't help me out very much, but it did at least help her out. Then we decided to kind of do a joint campaign together. Looks like we have a big crowd here. That's really good to see. From what I understand, I believe this is the Irving event, the Irving, Texas Democratic event. It's good to see this many candidates come out. But yeah, oh, well, the audio.
Currently, I'm a federal state criminal defense attorney. Before that, I was a prosecutor with Dallas County Police Officers, and I've been practicing for 11 years now. And I have over 60 trial experience as first sheriff. And what brings to the law is that I have experience on both sides, as well as experience when I was a little child as a crime victim, and that was my first introduction to the U.S. justice system. And so I think that was fair, impartial, all the law, and be compassionate, and make sure that I am working, showing up, doing the docket, and Right here, we are at the crossroads of District 6. I want to give a shout out to our Ellis County Democratic Chair. All right, District 33, that is Mark Eaton's district. It cuts right up around Kerrville. We were gerrymandered out of Texas 24, which Nathan is running for, when Epstein was elected to office in 2020, 5-0 in 2010. And guess what? The first thing he did was make sure that Irving, the city where he was mayor for 2 terms, was no longer in her district. So that should tell you. And so we will be working with the Democratic nominee for Texas 24 to make sure that our neighbors that are now in 24 know what Epstein really is. All right. So I would like to introduce people late. We had both moved back to Irving in 2018. We sat down for coffee. I think that lasted about 4 hours. And he dreamed of launching a club exactly like this. Bringing big crowds in from all over the county, from all over North Texas, bringing in big name speakers who could mobilize and recite, that we could be training, that we could have a place to do all the things that I've said Abbott was on. So, my turn. I have the privilege of announcing, now, this is a big deal. I've known him for almost a decade. This man is a true leader, grassroots organizer. He is a solid human being, and he showed up. And you're going to see that. This is going to be an amazing campaign. We're going to have a senator that actually speaks for us. And I'm so proud of him. And I just cannot believe that I have heard this
Here, who are friends of ours, my family, for putting this together for y'all. We're still being in the fight. You fired up? When you read your phone in the morning, you feel pretty good about that? When you doom scrolling, how's that feel? Look to your left and to your right. Does that feel a little better? Know that there's other folks out there who feel like you do. In every election I've been involved in, but particularly these elections after some results, I've told folks that, if you want to feel better about your community, your state, your country, just spend some time around your fellow Texans and talk to them. Get off your phone and get off the internet to talk to place and have a normal conversation. Because our people are better than our politics. Right? The gap that we have to close is to get our politics into a better place by winning elections to make sure that we reflect who we really are. That's why I appreciate you, Lisa, because she's a self-starter. When I first ran for Congress back in 2017, there were these groups that just popped up. And I think a lot of them had kind of started off as election night watch parties, and they became sort of group therapy sessions, you know. And they decided to keep on meeting and give themselves a name and organize themselves and decide to have candidates come talk and then decide to raise money and decide to go knock on doors and make phone calls. And all of a sudden, in an election that nobody thought at the beginning of it that we would win here in Texas against 20 years coming would be unopposed in the previous election. We beat this guy by 7 points. And it's because of folks like Lisa and all of you. Extraordinary things can be done by ordinary folks just using their voice. Listen, I know what's going on right now. I know it can feel dark. But you know, I believe it's always darkest before the dawn. I had a coach say, you hear rock bottom, at least you can push up, right? And where we are right now is that there are a lot of problems made in the last election for working people. Promises that they're going to be on their side, they're lower costs, they're helping us deal with inflation, rising cost of living. What's the group where I did? I'm on my show with raise our public school teachers, working on that salary, it's not enough. So, we go to Tom, Kroger, teacher's credit union debit card. We start that thing at the same curve, I'm telling you. Please. Sometimes it's something like that. So I understand why we're supposed to feel like, hey, listen, somebody's going to be on my side, and maybe I should vote for them. I understand that. The problem is they were betrayed. They were lied to. What's the first thing they did when they got a chance to pass a major piece of legislation? To stick it to working people. This bill they passed is an anti-working people bill. It's just a giveaway to the rich, picking 1.7 million Texans off their health care. Are you kidding me? We already have the highest insurance rate in the country. You want to add to that? It's going to raise your energy costs by $800 a year. That might sound like a lot to John Ford and the King Paxton. It sounds like a lot to me, though. I know what that means for working families. Maybe one thing if it was all so they could invest in our infrastructure or our children's future, but was it for that? No. We should have taxed again for the richest folks in the history of the world. You gotta be kidding me. It's a classic trick that they pulled on working folks in this last election. So what we gotta do, as I see it, Democratic groups like this, is we can't just go out there and talk about the virtues of democracy. I'm a voting rights lawyer by training. I could spend all day telling you about the virtues of democracy, how important it is, where we've come from, how far we've gone, we still have to do. But it has to be more concrete than that. Because democracy is a means to an end. Our democracy allows us to have a society in which if you work hard and play by the rules, you can get ahead. And that the game is not rigged against you. And that you actually have a chance. That's what our democracy ultimately is about. Is that we create these ladders of opportunities so that folks, then it's up to you, it's up to us. But if we don't give you those ladders of opportunities, then it's on us. And so when we go out there and talk about fighting for our values in this election cycle, you can't just say, well, democracy is at risk. Yes, it is. It's incredibly so. But what are they going to do with that power that they take? What are they doing with that power that they take? They're showing they want to do with that. It's just to enrich themselves and their friends and to stick it to working people every single time. And that's the message we got to deliver because there are so many folks I come across. This is the navigation since they're doing voting right here. We feel like nothing can change. And so why would they vote? It's one of the lowest voting turnout in the country in Texas. Election after election. We're voting every way around. Those are the reasons for that. It's not just the law. It's also a lot of our bills that feel like nothing's going to change. And so when you volunteer, when you knock on a door, when you make a phone call, when you talk to somebody who you're trying to get involved in an election, you're an ambassador of hope. You're bringing them a spark. You're giving them a chance to change their future. And so there's nothing more important you can be doing. I know there's all kinds of stuff you can do tonight. I don't know what's on at the bachelor season or bachelor, I don't know. But you can do that. If you're watching, some mindless TV, but you're here. Because somewhere in your mind you know that this isn't right. And that we have to do something about it. I'm running again for one reason. I'm a fighter. I don't give up. I don't give up on our state. I'm sure it's I can give up on all. I know what it takes. I know what we got to do. Here in our area, North Texas, we can win this next election almost here alone. There's so many important counties and precincts just here within our reach. The work that we can do here to make sure that you're not represented by Ken Paxton in the United States Senate. All right, right, so we gotta stand and fight. We gotta fight with our actions, with our words. We've been pledging allegiance to the flag and to the republic where we can stand your whole life. The question is, do we need it? And if we did, what are we willing to do for it? Because it's 20 or 30 years, when we're on the other side of this, looking back on it, reading books about it, kids, your grandkids, are going to ask you, what you do? When everything was on the line. When sins against our democracy and our republic were being committed, what did you do? And the only acceptable answer is what Julia Richard said before she died, which is every damn thing I could. Right? For some of us, it's a little different. Some of us are not going to knock on 100 doors. I get that. Some of us are not going to give $1,000. I get that. But everything you can do is what your republic demands of you. I'm doing everything I can do. I'm going to give you every fiber of my being in this election. You know what so, listen, I'm not a preacher, but I'm a preacher. Sometimes I cross over the line of preaching. I get in trouble when I do it, because there's always somebody who might know a little bit more. That's okay. Oh, we got the radio. Okay. All right. What's the plan? Get ready. Are you ready? Even before Hamilton, because I'm old, so I was before Hamilton came out. Before that, I was always drawn to this line in the book of my I was from the sword into plowshares, and the spears into fruit hooks, is that what it was? We don't eat fruit hooks, but and that everyone will sit under their own vine and fig tree, and no one will make them afraid. And George Washington used that passage in a number of his writings because he saw the new country as a Zion. It was an idea that if you could build a moral nation where folks would not be afraid, but they'd be free from oppression, where they could also experience the fruits of their labor, and that in a moral nation, you'd be able to prosper. That's what we've been. That's also what we're losing right now. We got to get back to the idea that your government works for you. Your representatives work for you. That this is something worth fighting for. That this country of ours, this state of ours, is a great country, it's a great state, and it's worth fighting for. For your kids, for your grandkids, for the Constitution, whatever it is that gets you motivated, it's worth fighting for. You're here, so I know you are. I hope you can be an evangelist for one of those movements too. We can do something really special here. We really can. 2026 can be a great year. 2018 was a good year. I believe the mark of the whole universe bends toward justice, like it okay said. But I always add, and I think people too, it doesn't bend on its own. We got to do it together. And when we win, it won't be a win for the Democratic Party. It'll be a win for our state, right? We win for our country, right? We win for us, for people. And we'll do it together. So I want to say thank you for being here and deciding to dip your toe in the water. The biggest trait that we need in these days is courage. And there's a church quote that I won't say, but basically that all the other traits are dependent on one: courage. You can't be those things unless you have courage. And courage isn't about doing things and not knowing that it could go wrong. Courage is knowing that it could go wrong and doing it anyway. And so I want to thank you all for being here. Thank you for standing up for your state. Thank you for standing up for your country. Let's go win this thing. You ready? Yeah? You fired up?
The 19th, yeah, the 19th. So this is it. Second yeah, second week, right? But I just want to tell y'all, Colin is on the ground and he's talking about it. So, thank you very much. At Gillis. Yeah, so sign up, make sure to sign up for North Texas Democrats.
That was awesome.
All right, Dale, you can take it from here.
All right, that was awesome. It's good to hear him. It's always good to hear Colin Allred. I also don't have any audio right now, so I don't know if you're looking to continue with this or if you wanted to chat more.
Have him out here in so many.
Let me tell you, I walked into the grocery store.
I can't actually.
You can go ahead and continue. Can you
I'm
hear
sorry.
me?
I can't really hear you over the background noise, Stephanie, but
We're going to be here. All right. So please, we need your help. None of this is, this free. We need money for postage, for prepaid chairs, can get letters out. We're putting volunteers in apartment complexes and gated communities. Here in Las Vegas, we have a number of gated communities.
All right, guys. Y'all have heard it live. Let's talk about stuff. Colin Allred was here and he spoke, and let's get the fire back. We got to go and get these people registered to vote and start getting the people involved.
absolutely. I think we're all fired up.
Oh yeah, the room is definitely fired up. There's so many people that are here. Hopefully, I'll be able to go and get an interview with him real quick. But I'm gonna let you go ahead and take over, or we can go ahead and wrap it up, y'all. We will be back on next Wednesday. We're gonna do a part two. we You know how it goes. You just never know what's going to wind up happening on here. But we have so much to tell y'all about what's going on, especially out here in Texas. And we'll be back on next Wednesday at 7 p.m. They'll wrap them up.
Absolutely. And guys, don't forget, not this Friday, but Friday after, we're going to have the Frisco Democratic Club happy hour at 6:30 p.m. in Frisco, Texas. And also, don't forget, every Monday we have Progressive Toastmasters. Progressive Toastmasters is a nice place where you can meet like-minded candidates, hear speeches by local community leaders, and even work on your own public speaking if you'd like to. It's a safe space for Democrats. So just look up Progressive Leaders Toastmasters on Facebook and you'll find us. Aside from that, Stephanie, I'll pass it back to you. Not sure if she can hear me right now though, but okay. Well, in that case, I believe we're going to sign off.